pain into purpose, legacy over luxury, and peace over pressure. Today's guest reminds us that prosperity isn't about having more, it's about becoming whole. Out of unimaginable loss, she built a legacy of hope and healing that now serves thousands. You're about to hear what it really means to build prosperity from peace, not pressure.
Here we go! Nicole Johnson, Nicole Johnson, Nicole Johnson, let's go!
And welcome to Prosperity Conversations. I am the Nicole Johnson, and my guest tonight is Debbie Simpson. I'm sorry, she's gonna kill me. It's Debbie Simmons, a visionary leader, nonprofit founder, and legacy architect whose story is a living example of prosperity born from purpose. After enduring unimaginable loss, the passing of her quadruplets, Debbie found her healing through faith and service. What began as small steps of obedience turned into Anchor Point, a multi division nonprofit that now serves thousands of families every year. Through Anchor Point and her work as legacy architect, Debbie helps families and leaders design lives of purpose, peace, and sustainability. I love it. She teaches that prosperity isn't built through pressure or performance, it's built through peace, purpose, and legacy. So let's welcome Debbie to our conversation.
Hi.
Hey Debbie, how are you?
I am good. I'm glad to be here.
Good. I'm glad to have you. And so, just so everyone knows, if you catch me looking over there, I got my notes and I got my notes. Don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me. So
It'll all be good. It'll all be
yes,
good.
listen, we got to keep the flow going because I'll keep you here all day and night if I could. So, Debbie, I want to just jump right into and start where we usually do. When you think about the word prosperity, what does that mean to you personally?
That's a great question. For me, it's not about money. It never
Mhm.
has been. It's about being and living the life that I was created to do. So it encompasses health, it encompasses my physical body, it includes emotionally, it includes everything that ultimately ends up being missional in nature to impact for God's kingdom. So it's about how am I and what am I doing while I'm here that is making an impact for today.
That's wonderful. And so when you think about part of your what your definition is about healing.
Mhm.
So can we talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want you to share what you healed from. Share as much, as little. Tell us about it, Debbie.
Well, I think it's really kind of multifaceted when you get down to talking about it. But you have, all of us have dreams and aspirations, and mine included being a young grandma. And so I had a plan that I was going to find a guy, fall in love, get married, have children, and then I could be a young grandma. And it was wonderful. It started out great, went to college. I did get a degree, but I found the guy, fell in love, got married, check, 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 and I'm a girl that gets things done. So it was, great. And I'm like, okay, let's have kids. And we ran his slap into infertility for
Mm,
numerous years. And that is something that begins to, eat away at your identity and
yes.
and especially if you're a person who can do just about anything and you can figure your way out of anything. And I can't figure out how to get pregnant. And it was so frustrating. And it was, God and I argued a lot about it. And I'm like, you gave me this love of kids, this not supposed to be this hard. And it was really hard. And so that was a very difficult multi-year season for me that
Mhm.
ultimately ended up in a pregnancy. We were pregnant with diagnosed with twins originally, And then I started bleeding around 13 weeks and ended up in the hospital thinking that I'm losing, I'm going to miscarry. And I've had all these years of trying, and it's just emotional wreck. And the ER people said, we hear one heartbeat. It could be two, but go home, rest for the weekend, and then go see your OBGYN.
Right.
And that made for a very long weekend.
Yes, it did. Yeah, I wasn't even there, and I can only imagine.
Yeah. And so on Monday, we got promoted to the high risk doctor, which is not unusual, when you have things like this. And we ended up in the waiting room, waiting to get an ultrasound. And I jokingly told my husband, I'm like, we think we're going to lose the babies. Wouldn't it be funny if we went back there and they told us we were having triplets? And he was like, ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, well, it'd be funny. And get back there, the lady puts the probe on my stomach, and I went, oh, there's 3. And my husband, who was not working at the time because he was in graduate school, is over there just shaking his head and just, what are we going to do? And I'm like, oh boy. And, it just starts to, like, everything that you think you have control of kind of just starts to dissipate. Right. And
right in front of you.
And the lady said, let's just take one more picture, and I'll do like a mom picture, of all the babies in there. And she starts moving everything around again. And I went, oh, there's 4. And I told her, I said, quit looking, because I don't need to know if 5, 6, 7, or 8 are in there, because it's already high risk, right?
I came back here and you found 2 more than what I thought. Don't go looking for nothing else.
I know. I'm like sitting there. My husband's now pacing the room. The little tech is like, I need to get the doctor. And I'm like, okay. And so she goes to get the doctor, and the doctor comes back, confirms that there's 4. And, it's like the whole world changes. I mean, like the whole world changes. And we went home, and we knew that each next step was pretty amazing, but the goal became to get those babies to 30 weeks.
Right.
And, a lot of people think that might not be too difficult, but you know what? I bet most of your listeners have never eaten for 5 every day, every meal, and it is hard. And so we just knew making it to the next day was pretty amazing. At 26 weeks, we found me standing in water and knew that one of the boys' sacs had ruptured, and they sent me to the hospital to stay, and hoping to make it to the 30 weeks. And the next morning, contractions just came crashing in, and one of the babies had kind of stuck his hand through my stitched cervix and was like, hello, I'm coming. And I was like looking at the doctor, just like, can you just stop this? Like, put the hand back. Let's forget it ever happened. And it's too early. And she shook her head no, because at that day, technology was not there to be able to save boys. Yeah. And so I knew when she said we had to deliver them that boy would not make it. And so they sent me off into surgery, back into the room. And several hours later, little Zach arrived, and they just cleaned him up and put him quickly in my arms. And he took his hand and wrapped it around my finger, and he squeezed to say, hey, Mom, I'm here. I love you. And I held him and rocked him and loved him till he drifted into eternity. And then we sat with empty arms and we waited, because now the question became whether or not we would be able to carry the other 3. And it depended on what my body would do. And over a period of a couple of hours, I got a really bad fever, and my blood work was a mess. The doctor came back in, and she said, you have to induce. And I just looked at her, is there any way to not do this? And she shook her head no. And I just breathed and resolved to kind of figure my way. And a little while later, Josh, Nate, and Chris each arrived on the scene, and they placed them in my arms, and I held them and I rocked them and I loved them till they drifted into eternity. And then we sat empty arms and broken hearts. And that, you know, you don't go to the hospital planning births and make a plan to do funerals. And so that was the journey that kind of um, made me realize that it's more than money, and eternity matters, and impact matters, and I want it to be about that stuff. So
Debbie, listen, we it's powerful. That really is too. And it's almost like being there. I have a similar rush to the hospital in pain. Um, I went from one white coat doctor being in the room to a flood because they don't know what's going on. And I'm like, well, he's kicking up a storm, so we know he's okay. Well, he wasn't. He was in fetal distress and he
mhm.
needed to get out because his heart rate was so fast. They had to
Mm.
count it by hand. And his heart beat 360 times in a minute.
Ooh.
And so, I mean, in the doctor's trying to calmly talk to me, and then the nurse just walks in and she goes, "I'm like, man, what are you doing?" She's like, "We need to get this catheter in." You need to explain to me what is going on. And I mean, it's like we're playing this game with my legs, and finally the doctor tells me what happened, and I say, "Well, why you didn't say something?" That's Red Eagle. My husband's like, "What is wrong with you?" Like she gotta start explaining stuff before she just come in here fanning me open like this. But for the first year and a half, he was on medication. He's 26.
Mm.
So he's doing well. And Debbie, but in those moments, I can
Mhm.
relate to how you felt because
Yeah.
we didn't know if he was going to make it. And to
Mhm.
see what you have put together
Mm.
since then is
Yeah.
an absolute amazing journey of yours. I
Yeah.
mean, it is absolutely amazing. And I appreciate you sharing that because, to be able to talk about that for a long time, it took me a long time to be able to even explain my situation without breaking down.
Mm.
So to just sit here with you and have this conversation is so powerful. And I appreciate you sharing that. And it's a testament that things happen one step at a time. And just to hear you say, this is what we did, this is how we waited, and this is what happened next. So
Mhm.
I want to thank you for sharing that part. So,
Sure.
anchor point in your work as the legacy architect, which has
Mhm.
touched so many lives, I want you to tell us about how you are helping families and leaders create clarity, confidence, and control in their lives now.
Yes. Okay. So one of the things, I talked about really learning is that, eternity mattered and
Yes,
impact
it does.
mattered and
Yes, it does.
being extremely intentional. So my heartbeat for leaders and this legacy architect kind of idea is centered around that we need to live our legacies now so that we have a legacy to leave.
Yes.
Um, and this is important because we can get so busy doing life that eventually we pass away and we have a legacy of some sort. It's just, what is it, right? Because it just
Mhm.
happens, whatever happens in the process. And I believe that God wants us to live them now with intentionality to be able to craft our legacy that stays behind, right? And we're all here uniquely to do something special. And I think, when I'm working with leaders or coaching and stuff like that, one of my desires is for us to just stop and think about like, what are we here for, and what is it we want to be remembered for, and
Yes.
what do we want to see, and when after losing the boys, I just remember going, my life is not over. and I want to feel again, and I want to have joy, and I want to be an impact player. And God, you say you redeem stories. And so I'm going to trust you. I'm going to go like, how do I thrive with this story? What do you promised to make something beautiful of it. And that, as I gave that to him, then he began to clarify
Yeah.
the ways that he would begin to use that. And it started with small things like just helping another woman who had lost a child, or
Mm.
helping a family that was struggling, or leading grief groups. And it just kind of continued to grow. It led to my husband and I, I still wanted to be this young grandma. I still have this dream, right? And so we ended up adopting 9 children out of foster care over the
I'm
years.
sorry. Wait a minute. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we
Did you
have
say
9.
9?
Yeah, we have a baseball team. Yeah.
Did you
So,
say 9?
yes,
Like
I did.
9?
Yes, yes, very
Were they
good.
all siblings?
We did 3 different adoptions, and it was a sibling group of 5, then a sibling group of 2, then a sibling group of 2. So we're a blended family.
Yes, you are. That's a whole bag of Skittles. It's like
Yeah.
all kinds of things in the rainbow.
Yeah. So this was part of the journey. So it wasn't the plan that we had originally, but it was definitely God's plan. And so that took us into a fun arena, a time, as we've gone through that. I have gotten grandbabies. I have about 15 now, which I'm excited about. So I love that. And matter of fact, as soon as we're done taping, I'm going to get some of them. But I just love to do that. And then God planted a seed that said, hey, start Anchor Point. And I'm like, dude, you're at the wrong house. I work in full-time ministry. I have 9 I have a mission field at my house. I'm like, no, it takes time and money and energy. And he just is like, no, you need to do this. And we went back and forth for a while, but you can fight God, but you're not going to win.
Never.
Um,
So
and
he's that
yeah,
person
so
who'll say, if you want to see me laugh, tell me your plans. Go ahead,
yeah.
tell me.
And so he had me start Anchor Point, and I'm an engineer by training. I don't know
Mhm.
anything about a nonprofit. I just know that I love families and I love to see them thrive. And he wanted it, and I was like, finally, okay. And so I started just doing the next best step that I could think of, and found a girlfriend that would do it with me, and she thought it was good. And then she's like, we need to tell everybody. I'm like, oh my gosh, we got to tell people. And we told, because the whole time I'm thinking, I'm just trying to be obedient. Let me go back to my life. And God's just like, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's been an amazing journey to watch how God's worked in that. And it's so much better when I'm a yes girl than a fighter. And it's been fun to see, what we get to see is we get to see people that are struggling
Mm.
begin to get peace and calm, and then begin to open up like a beautiful flower and begin to thrive. And so, what could have been chaos and destruction and the end
Yeah.
of the life of that child turns into a young mama figuring her way. And we get to walk alongside them all through the journey. And then, we run therapeutic camps for families who have kids that are struggling. And those are a lot of times are foster kids and things like that, to help them know how to connect with those kids. And it is just a blessing to see families grow and to experience them just really becoming the people that God wants them to be. So changing their whole trajectory. And that is the fun of Anchor Point. But that's what we do. We help families thrive, and everything there. And then on my coaching side, I work with individuals to say, hey, let's figure out what your legacy is, and let's figure out how to help you do it. And that, I love to see that too, because I believe, the more we have businesses and we do things, we can just have a bigger footprint and a bigger impact with what we do. And that's a blessing.
That is beautifully said to end that, to wrap this up. That is a blessing. You're aligned, we're aligned, and when I was looking for speakers to participate in this, I wasn't sure who was going to show up. I just wasn't sure. But I had been working on this behind the scenes as it's finally time to put it out here. And so I am so glad that you answered the call to come and share your story, because progress with purpose and abundance that touches lives beyond our own, that is absolutely prosperity. It's
Mhm.
not always about the money. It's not always about the mighty dollar. It's important, but it is not the end all be all as a definition. And so I have Debbie's website on the screen. Go over to thedebbie.simmons.com, check her out. She's doing some amazing things in our community. And I hope that Debbie will decide that she will come on board for our Prosperity Speaker Summit in April. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but it will give our audience something. This is just a small snippet. I can see so much happening for you and being involved in our speaker fair with just a little bit that you shared with us today, because your entire testimony is going to be the breakthrough that somebody else needs to hear. And so before we go, what would you say? This is a question I like to ask because it's a lot for you to share. But
Mhm.
you do share your testimony. I always want to know, what is something that you would say to someone who's listening, watching right now, who's listening, who's tired, who's stretched thin, and wondering if she can ever live prosperously without burning out? What would you say to her?
Well, the first thing I would say is breathe. Because when you're breathing, that means you're alive. And when you're alive, when you do deep breathing, the interesting thing that happens is it puts you in your prefrontal cortex, which is where logical thought is. And so a lot of times we become overwhelmed because we're in the emotional part of our brain. And then I would just encourage you, dump all the junk that's rolling around in your head on a piece of paper. And then
Mm,
go get a coffee, exercise, do something different, and then come back and your perspective will be different. And you can look at it and go, okay, these are emotional things and these are the big issue. And then let me figure out on the big issues, what is the next small step that I can do? Because that's all we can control. I think a lot of times we get burnout and anxiety and stuff like that. It's because we're looking so far down the future and we're overwhelmed and it gets us off track. And then if we look back, we look and we see regret and shame and guilt and all these things.
yeah.
The truth is, we can't do anything about those things. The only thing that we can control is what is happening right now. And I go, God says, keep our eye on him and he will show us and light our path as to what the next thing is. And you know what? The sun always comes up tomorrow.
Yes, it
And
does.
yeah, and so I just say, lean into him and trust. And I do I have a speaking engagement at the end of the year and it's about the fog and when the fog comes. And sometimes the fog is the path to breakthrough. But
Oh,
we have to lean in. And so I think that that's the biggest thing is that, don't give up because right when we think we can't do it anymore, the breakthrough is just around the corner. And so
mm.
so God promises, and let's lean in, and He will show us a way. And your daddy God is not surprised by where you said today. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. That is a wonderful tip to leave our ladies with, to leave our audience with, because it does apply to the men too. It applies to them too. And so thank you so much for being here with us to share your testimony. Again, I hope to see you at the Prosperity Summit. For those of you who are watching, make sure you stay tuned in. I am the Nicole Johnson, reminding you that prosperity isn't something you chase, it's something you choose every single day.